Good morning. I want to talk this morning about living space. Space is not empty nothingness as we have thought. It is not just the world's empty container that material forms move through. It is full, it is dynamic, and it is alive. It is perhaps the primary reality in the universe. It is perhaps synonymous with consciousness, awareness, livingness, generativity, and being. It is quite a leap to move from the culture's definition of space, emptiness, to the definition that quantum physics is leading us toward, invisible, living being. How did we get here? Why are these questions arising now? The answer lies in the fact that our old definitions of reality in the West, which go back to the Greeks, have been effectively disproven. The Greeks talked of material forms as composed of tiny units or atoms, which were themselves material, but just very, very small. Through all the centuries, what we believed was eternally true was that the primary reality in the cosmos was material. It was what we could see. It made sense that what we could observe was what was real. 400 years ago, Isaac Newton restated this fundamental assumption and worked out the dynamics of material forms moving through space and colliding with each other. In France, René Descartes stated that as between material and consciousness, the two poles of our existence, we must focus on material forms, since consciousness could not be satisfactorily studied. It did not allow measurement or repeated experiments, which are the bedrocks of scientific study. In all these developments, space was effectively ignored. It was considered empty nothingness, a mere arena for the play of forms. The possibility that there might be invisible realities in space was not considered. The West took Descartes' advice to heart and turned all its efforts toward understanding the material realm. And great advances were made as a result. However, this orientation left the modern world with effectively no knowledge of the nature of space. Then, in the 20th century, the development of quantum physics exploded our old system of reality. As our technologies became more and more powerful, we were able to see deeper and deeper into the heart of material. We penetrated the mysteries of the atom and found a host of smaller phenomena, electrons, protons, quarks, and so on. As we penetrated even deeper, we found that matter disappeared completely into light and energy. At the deepest levels, matter ceased to exist. This was astounding. If at its deepest levels matter vanishes, then it cannot be the primary reality in the universe. Something else must be generating, unfolding, and creating emerging reality. Our assumptions of many centuries about the nature of reality have somehow been mistaken. We are still reeling from this discovery, and no alternative consensus to the old reality has been put forward. Indeed, there are scarcely any good candidates. We are thus left at a peculiar moment in history. Our old understanding of reality has been disproven. No new understanding has come forth. We do not, at this moment, know the actual reality of the universe in which we exist. Perhaps it is time to investigate that other pole of our experience, space. The original objections of Descartes are still operative. Space is invisible, and any operations taking place within it cannot be observed or verified with the tools that we have developed to study matter. In addition, we have centuries of cultural bias to overcome, centuries of assuming that there is nothing there. Nonetheless, if we can get past the distaste of looking for answers in the invisible realm, we might strike gold. It is worth noting that both consciousness and space are invisible realities that we experience every day. Perhaps they are the same thing. Perhaps livingness, a pure field of livingness, is also part of this cluster. Perhaps intelligence and mind are part of the cluster. We can observe that without a doubt, something is generating reality, holding it together in a completely collated way, and dissolving it behind us as the present moment moves forward into the future. This thought tracks almost perfectly the ancient insights of Vedanta. Brahman creates, Vishnu sustains, and Shiva destroys. Perhaps we are rapidly returning to the most ancient insights into reality of the human animal. Considering a rich, fecund, generative space as the primary reality turns our conceptual world on its head. If matter is not the primary reality, then it must be a secondary byproduct, an effect produced by the invisible operations of space. We know that matter itself is composed of elemental particles. Perhaps these particles are orchestrated for a time by space into delineated material forms and then dispersed back into space when that form dissolves, when they are freed to be incorporated into another material form. We do know that everything in the material world is temporary and eventually disappears. This is true of rocks, mountains, planets, suns, galaxies, and ourselves, though the time periods may vary widely. It is conceivable that living space is the generative force from which matter emerges and back into which it finally dissolves. If so, we are going to have a real problem studying the processes by which that unfolds. That is, the emergence and dissolution of material forms in space. We may not be able to use cause and effect in the same way that we have used it to study the operations of matter. Quantum physics has shown us that elemental particles do not always operate predictably by the principles of cause and effect. Electrons jump from one orbit around a nucleus to another orbit without appearing to pass between the orbits. They also appear to blink in and out of existence. Space is not empty, but full of particles. Throughout the space of the universe, particles manifest and almost instantaneously disappear. This has been called quantum foam. Also, electrons that have been closely associated appear afterward to operate in tandem, no matter how distant they may become from each other. Apparently unconnected phenomena are influencing each other. At the level of quantum phenomena, things operate quite differently from the level where we live. We may have to give up cause and effect at the quantum level, though it continues to operate reliably in our grosser world. Other investigative tools, such as looking for correlations between phenomena, may have to be used instead. These difficulties have led many scientists attached to the old reality by education and career to simply ignore the new findings as irrelevant. This group continues on in the old way, as if the quantum discoveries had never been made. But they have been made, and they will eventually change everything. In due time, we will construct a new reality that takes everything that we know into account. This may take a long time. At present, we are in completely new territory without a coherent reality framework to explain large parts of reality. Having been deprived of matter as our primary reality, perhaps we should turn toward living space or being as a candidate. It is long overdue for us to examine the invisible realm as a possible source for the ground of reality. If invisible being, space, livingness, and consciousness are one and the same thing, then the unified field of quantum physics tells us that the entire cosmos, as one thing, must be alive and conscious. Together with the material realm, these may simply be different aspects of being, different ways that it manifests its infinite nature. If this is true, then every day as we walk on the earth, we are surrounded and suffused by being and living space, and everything material that we see around us is emerging from it momentarily. If we discover this to be the case, we will enter a new world and a new universe.